Hello, and welcome to this very special video series for SAISD ELA teachers about the TSI 2.0, specifically about the ELA portion of the test. This video is designed for people who may not know very much about the TSI and would like to learn more. This is not a deep dive. This is not specific strategies. If you already feel like you have a good grasp on the TSI 2.0 test, you may not need to watch this video. So it's really kind of designed for the person who is just told by their administrator, hey, you're now in charge of TSI and you really don't know what TSI is. That's who I'm making this video for. So if that describes your situation, I welcome you and invite you to continue to watch. So this is who I am. My name is Paula Doloff. I am a teacher over at Thomas Jefferson High School. My email address is there if you ever want to reach out. As I record this, which is in April of 2021, I'm in my 29th year of teaching, and it's my 7th year teaching in Texas. I'm actually originally from Buffalo, New York, but I did most of my teaching career in Ohio. That's me. I elected to keep my camera off during the making of this because of the little box tends to get in the way of some of the content that I'm trying to give you. So I wanted to just show you who I was in case you've seen me around PD and you're like, oh, I've seen that girl before. And please feel free to reach out. All right, so just my TSI story, why I am making this video, why I feel like I have the authority at all to tell you anything about the TSI, is that prior to becoming a Jefferson Mustang, I taught at the Harlandales Early College High School. I taught there for 5 years. I was the very first English teacher. I was there when the school started. And every single person, and that's every single person in the student, had to pass the TSI to take their college classes. That was required. We were partnered with Palo Alto College, and if the students couldn't pass the TSI, they wouldn't be allowed to continue with their coursework. And though they could take it more than once, it began to become a problem if they couldn't pass it. So I was giving students TSI Prep that I had bought off of Amazon, like anything else. They didn't really give me any material, so they're like, have at it. And so I did what a lot of teachers do. I ordered something that I found online, and the students started coming up to me and saying, you know what, this is not at all like the TSI. When we take it, the passages are much shorter than the ones you're giving me. Mrs. O'Reilly isn't helping us very much. So I went into the guidance counselor and I said, can I take the test? And she said, sure. Now, should she have told me that? I have no idea. But she just said, log yourself in and take it. And I took it like 4 times in a row. And so I got to know the test really, really well so that I could help my students pass it. And this information did somehow reach the Jefferson people. They found out that I had this specific area of knowledge, and they made me the TSI person in our campus. So both a blessing and a curse, I suppose. The TSI, the test that the students now take, which is called the TSI 2.0, is a little bit different than the test I first knew, but it hasn't changed. In my opinion, it hasn't changed materially in terms of the kinds of questions. It's just the organization of the test has changed. So I was happy when I took the beta version of the 2.0. I went over to San Antonio College and took the beta version. And I was like, oh, it's really pretty similar in terms of the kinds of questions they're asking. It's just organized a bit differently. So if you're familiar with the old TSI, don't feel like you have to throw out all your knowledge because it will be, much of it will be transferable. So what is this TSI Resources for ELA Teachers? I was asked by Janet Hester to create a series of videos specifically or not just to create a course. I don't know if she needed me to create the videos. That was my idea. But she wanted me to create a course for ELA teachers so they had somewhere to go. They had something to do. If they had their campus administrator tell them that they were now in charge of the TSI test. And I have had teachers kind of on an ad hoc basis ask me for help. So we kind of decided to put together this course. It is going to be, as it says on the screen, a work in progress. I plan to add, change, subtract, what we need, what I have time to do. I am a teacher like everyone else. I have a full teaching load. I teach AP, I teach dual credit, I teach this TSI class. So I will be adding to it as I have time, and probably over the summer quite a bit more. And depending on when you're watching this video, there may be a lot in the course or there may be just a little bit in the course. I do want to provide information. I think you need to understand the test if you're going to prepare students for it. I think you have to understand the test very well yourself. There will be some videos and slideshows. The slideshows will be all slideshows that you can copy and use if you want to use them to introduce the test and to modify it for your own needs and to introduce the test. And I will also include practice questions. That was my biggest thing. When I started getting students ready, I had no practice questions because the stuff that's commercially available is very ineffective. So I want to talk about what the test is, why students take it, and what it's like to take the test. This is not a deep dive. This is not strategies. This is not looking at specific types of questions. Those are going to be in later videos. So again, if you're familiar with the test and you find this is a little bit elementary for you, I welcome you to stop the video and look at some of the deep dives and see if those will be more useful to you. Otherwise, continue with me. Okay, what is the TSI used for? First of all, it stands for, and I can't believe I didn't put this in the slide, but it stands for Texas Success Initiative, Texas Success Initiative. Sometimes the kids ask, they don't really need to know, but they often ask me, what does it mean? It is one way for students to demonstrate college readiness. So if you're being asked to do TSI with seniors or maybe even rising seniors, late juniors, it could be because they're trying to get them to satisfy the CCMR, College Career Military Readiness requirement. That is, if they can get considered college ready in reading and math, then they can be in the bucket, as they call it. I don't know that much about CCMR. Probably your guidance counselors do, but that's what I do understand, that this is one way students can show that college career military readiness. There's a lot of other ways. There's AP, there's IB, there's military, going in, if you're going into the military, there's through the CTE program. But again, I don't want to speak too much about that because I don't know that much. So students need to get, students also who want to take a dual credit class, not an on-ramps, but a dual credit class, they need to get a certain score on the TSI to be able to register for that class. I know this past year with the pandemic, they had some exceptions in place since it was hard to test everybody. I don't know if those exceptions are going to stay in place. So that was the main reason I had to learn the TSI, was because the students at Harlandale, which is an extremely similar population to the population we work with in SAISD, they had to pass it to take their college classes. And the kids who didn't, they had to wait to take their college classes. So it became a problem if they couldn't pass it. All right, I like to put this chart up because it does tell how it's different from tests that you may be more familiar with or the students may be more familiar with. So as you kind of look across the line, it sort of talks about the differences. I'm going to point to a couple of big differences. There's really no time limit on the TSI. Some campuses and some proctors may impose a timeline because they don't want to be there all day. But there's technically, according to the College Board, no time limit. It's only taken on the computer. The reading, I think, is one of the biggest things because there's a lot of short passage questions, which you'll see in a moment, and they don't really have anything like that on STAR, PSAT, or SAT. But you'll have a lot. I think there's 9 on there. It's short passage, 1 question, short passage, 1 question. Another big difference is the essay can be as long as you want it to be. There's no limit on it like there is on STAR. The other big difference is you get your scores right away. At least the proctor does. The student, they don't always give it to the students, I find, but I think that's because we're doing remote testing. But the scores are issued right away, even for the essay. Okay, so as of January 2021, the TSI test was redesigned and it's now called the TSI 2.0. I think, again, I took the beta of it back I think December of 2020. I'm on the adjunct faculty at San Antonio College. I used my adjunct credentials to take the beta test of the TSI 2.0. I didn't take the essay, but I only took the multiple choice and I took the diagnostic that was part of it. And so I was relieved to see that a lot of the question types had remained the same. In fact, some of the questions that I recognized from the TSI were still on there. But the format has changed. And so a lot of what I'm going to talk today about is how the format has changed. Okay, so I'm going to use some terms as I talk to you about the test. And one of them is the CRC, which stands for College Readiness Classification. And those are the regular questions that everybody gets. Those are the 30 multiple choice questions. So if you hear me talk about the CRC questions, every student who takes the test is going to get those. You also might hear me talk about the diagnostic questions. And not every student will get the diagnostic questions. If they do very well in the CRC section, they will not get the diagnostic questions. If they miss a bunch, they'll get the diagnostic questions. Now, on the old TSI, you may or may not know this, but on the old one, if you got the diagnostic, you failed. There was no point in even really doing the diagnostic questions. That is a change with 2.0. The kids can still pass off their diagnostic score, which I think is a very positive change. So if you see a student get the diagnostic, you just need to encourage them. The downside of getting the diagnostic is, well, the test is longer. You get 48 more questions. Who wants that? Nobody. But they can pass off the diagnostic, and we actually have had kids pass off the diagnostic. They got too low in CRC, but their diagnostic was in the right spot, so they were able to pass that part of the test. Okay, so the overview of the ELA test. It's 30 CRC questions. 15 of them are about reading, 15 of them are sentence revisions, editing. There's no completion. I don't know why that's on there. They took that off. There's an essay, and you possibly have additional diagnostic questions depending upon how you do on the CRC questions. And I'm going to go through a couple of different testing scenarios that your students might encounter. So that is but everybody, every single person who takes this test, who sits down to do it, is going to be given 30 CRC questions. What happens after that depends on how they do on those CRC questions. And I'm going to go through those scenarios in a little bit. Before we go through those scenarios, I want to talk about how it's scored. The new way that the TSI is scored is a score out of 990 for the multiple choice and a score of 8 for the essay. The essay scoring has not changed from the old TSI. If the student had the diagnostic questions, they'll also get an NRS score. NRS, I don't know what NRS stands for. I'm sorry. But you will find out whether you're college ready or not college ready. That's how you will be designated. If you did do the NRS, you're going to get anywhere from beginning basic. I shouldn't say you're not going to be taking the test, but the student is going to be anywhere from beginning basic to high adult secondary. And so those are the classifications that they'll have. That is probably more than most people need to know. Most people just want to know the score, which is out of a 990 and it's out of an 8. So the next question is, of course, what do you need? I mean, that's what we always care about, right? You need to get a 945 or higher on the multiple choice or a 5 or 6 on the diagnostic. So even if a student has like a 940, and if they do really well in the diagnostic and they get a 5 or 6, then they can still pass. Here's the part that's really causing us a little bit of a difficulty right now at Jefferson is they need to get a 5 or higher. And we're having a little bit of a problem getting them up to a 5. I mean, I've only been doing it since January, so it's only been a couple months, but that's my new thing is a lot. I have kids who are hitting the 945, but they're not hitting the essay score, they're getting a 4. So that's where, the thing that the kids hate, and I kind of hate too, is they have to take the whole thing over. Because I did have some students get the CRC score they needed. They had like a 950, but they had a 4 in the essay. They got to take the whole thing over. And that's the part that I don't love so much. And trust me, neither do the students. But it's what we have to do. It's the new thing we have to do with that. So that's essentially what they need to pass. And I do have this slideshow in the Canvas course. You don't really need to take notes. Okay, so what does the test process look like for students? I want to give you a couple different scenarios. This is the best scenario of the 3. This is the one we hope all students get. They start with their 30 CRC questions. If they do well, they get put into the essay. If they do well on the essay, the test is over. That's the easiest way to get college ready. That's, of course, what we hope for. We hope they do well in everything, right? We don't want them to have to do diagnostics, but it doesn't always work out that way. So for the students, they start again. Everybody starts with those 30 CRC questions. If they don't do so well, they'll be given the diagnostic. Now that's where they can turn it around and be the comeback kid. If they do well in the diagnostic, then they'll get the essay, and then if they do well in the essay, they get college ready. One more scenario, 30 CRC questions, that's never going to change. If they do well, they go to the essay. Now, I want to say if they don't do well on the essay, they can still do the diagnostic questions. I thought I saw that in one of my pieces of work. So at that point, then perhaps they can get the designation of college ready. Okay, so let's just go brief. This is a brief overview. In fact, you're going to see things that are this is the disadvantage of using PowerPoint. You're going to see some of the samples that are going to be pretty small, but I will show you where I'll show you where I have linked the reading guide in the slideshow. So the reading questions are the first things the students encounter. They're going to have 9 short passage, 2 connecting selection, and 1 literary passage. And the literary passage has 4 questions. So if you add that together, 4 plus 2 plus 9, 9 plus 2 is 11, 11 plus 4, that's 15. Yes, I'm sorry. My math was a little, I'm not the math TSI person, so that's a good thing. So this is actually, but they'll actually get the literary passage first, then the connecting selections, then the short passage. So let's look at what the questions just actually look like. We're not deep diving into the questions at this point. This video would be really long. So if you can't see something on your screen, please do not get frustrated, because I'm going to show you where you can get to those, get to the reading guide yourself so that you can look at them. Okay, so I took all of the questions. I have written many of my own, but I took all the questions that I used in this slideshow from the College Board TSI Prep Guide. And I'm just going to show you that if you go into the slideshow, you can get to the TSI Prep Guide from here. And that's where you will have all of the questions and also the answer key, which I think is really important, because sometimes we might be not sure ourselves, even as teachers, and which is my favorite thing, is the explanations. I really hate when you don't have the explanations, because I don't know, sometimes I need it explained to me as well. So that is, so you won't be able to see everything like in detail that I'm about to go over, but you can go to that guide. I just wanted to let you know that. There's only so much I can do in the slideshow format. So please do not get frustrated if you can't see it. So like right here, I know that nobody can see this, but let me show you just a bigger version of the question. So this is just sort of what it looks like. And again, that's all I'm wanting to show you, is how it looks and what types of questions they're getting. So they will start with the literary passage. So this is the only thing on the test that is not informational text. It's going to sound like something out of a novel or a book. And you can see that all the sentences are numbered, which is super convenient, because then the students can find where they're going. They can navigate the text very easily. And then this is this type of question that you're going to get. The first paragraph suggests which of the following about the relationship between university students and the teachers at the Imperial Book Depot. So you could probably do that. I mean, if you wanted to freeze the video and try this question, you could. But I'm not so much interested in saying let's go through specific strategies, as just showing you what the kids are going to encounter. There will be deep dive videos that you can watch if you want more of that kind of thing. So this would be the question that they would answer based on the passage, and they're going to get 4 of these. And that's how every CRC test is going to start, or every CRC section is going to start. The second type of question they're going to use connecting passages. And again, I know this is probably very small, especially if you're watching on your phone, but I'm more interested in that you see that there's 2 passages and that there's 1 question that's going to be asked about 2 passages. We can look at a slightly bigger version of the question. This is the kind of question that they're going to encounter. The author of passage 1 would most likely criticize the author of passage 2, 4. And then, of course, they would have to understand what each author's perspective is to give the best answer to this question. This one is easy to put on a slide. This is the short passage. So when I say short passage, and I tell the kids, I'm not kidding, the passages are very, very short, and they'll have 1 question. And so this is going to represent 9 questions on the test. So this is more than half of the reading half of the test. So it's important that they get good at the short passage questions. I can move my little thing. You know, the author uses the term natural to indicate that the dentures of the 18th and 19th centuries were, and then you would, again, if you really want to try this question here, and you can freeze the video, but I'm not going to linger on it any longer. Those are the types of questions that they're going to get. That's the reading part. 15 questions, 1 literary passage, 2 connecting selections, 9 short passage. Now we get into the writing questions, and sometimes it's kind of confusing because they're not actually writing here. They're answering multiple choice questions. There's, of the 30, the 15 are the writing multiple choice, and those are going to be questions 16 through 30. These questions are going to focus on editing and revising skills, and there's 4 questions attached to a longer passage, and the other questions are short. So let me show you what these look like. Okay, long passage, that is obviously not something that you could read in this forum, but this is what the questions will look like. In the context, which phrase should replace the vague pronoun them in the sentence. And the second one, which sentence provides unnecessary information that should be deleted. These questions really do remind me of the STAR questions from STAR 1 and STAR 2. If you've ever had any interaction with the ELA English 1, English 2 exam, they get the long passage. It's supposed to be like some kind of fake draft, like a student wrote, and they desperately need your revision help through the guise of multiple choice questions. And so you're going to get those kinds of questions. You might get asking to add a thesis in. You might be saying, where would you insert this sentence in the passage? So the nice thing is the students are kind of used to these types of questions. The other type of question you'll get, and you'll have 11 of these, and they're going to be the underlined portion. You're supposed to scrutinize the underlined portion and see if you want to change it, and if so, what would you change it to? You can see these questions a lot better. These are just a little easier to put in the slideshow because they're pretty short. And in this, if you pick A is always leaving it the way it is. So it's interesting that they chose to just put the exact same words. A lot of times they'll say as it is now or no change. That's how they're used to seeing it on STAR. So I always make sure I point that out to them, that A is always going to be no change, that you think it's fantastic the way it is and you wouldn't do a thing to it. And so those are, again, they've had some, I think they've had experience with these. I think this is more of like, okay, I'm kind of out of my element here, but maybe more of an SAT skill. I don't know if they ever see them exactly as these shorter sentences with the underlined portion, but I think on the SAT they have passages where they scrutinize certain things in a whole passage, kind of like the other one. But these are editing skills much more so than the revision skills. And these are some, and I'm going to go into these a little bit more detail. These are the things I noticed when I scrutinized and took the test. Parallelism, subject, they love agreement. They absolutely agreement. I don't even know what it is about pronoun antecedent agreement that the College Board is obsessed with, but they are. I've also seen sometimes, looking at the transition word or the subordinating conjunction and seeing if that's the right word or if you would put a different word in place of it. I think some of these are meant to like sort of look at second language, I guess. It seems kind of strange to me. Comma splice errors, dangling modifiers, and some basic things with reducing wordiness and maybe coordination and subordination that I see. And those I'm going to cover in a video at a later date. The last thing is the essay. The essay is taken on the computer. It has to be typed. It will happen either after the 30 CRC questions or after the diagnostic. If you do poorly on both okay, this is the thing I didn't mention before, but if you do terribly, not you, I shouldn't say you, if a student does terribly on the CRC and the diagnostic, they're not going to get the essay. Okay, so if they bomb both of those, no essay for them. It's just, I guess, no hope at that point. They're just going to have to retake. The range is the same as on the previous TSI 1 to 8. You need a 5 to pass. It says there that sometimes a 4 will pass. I have to take that out. A 4 will never pass them. A 4 will not pass them on the TSI. I will take that out of the slideshow. Since the essay is scored by the computer, you usually get it the day of the computer. It used to be on the old test that they might get put into a hand score. I have not seen any hand scores yet. We've had Jefferson students have taken it. We've had maybe roughly 50 or so kids take it, and we have not seen a hand score yet. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Never say never, especially when it comes to testing. They always say to write between 300 to 600. I would encourage your students to go to the upper end of that limit. We used to tell them at Harlandale to write at least 600. And that worked, but that's not working anymore. So I don't know if they've made the test harder, the essay harder to pass, but at Harlandale, that was the easiest part for our kids to pass. And our kids were not necessarily perfect writers. So I think they might have made this harder to pass. The essay is written in response to an essay prompt. The prompt is designed to be written without specific knowledge in an area. And the prompt specifies a multi-paragraphed essay. Of course, I recommend the standard beginning, middle, and end. It works for a reason. I tell them to write between 4 to 7 paragraphs, which includes the introduction and the conclusion. Here's a sample topic. It really does remind me a lot of the STAR 2 persuasive prompt. They give you sort of this little passage, which if you're like me, you tell the students you don't necessarily need to use it or understand it. It's supposed to stimulate their thinking. You get the question, and then they write the essay. This is exactly from the college guide, and I'll show you where you can look at those. Are we free to make our own decisions? Are we limited in the choices that we make? And I'm going to do a deep dive video on the essay, and I'm also going to I'm going to address that particular prompt and how you might approach it with students. Okay, this is the information they give to the students. This is apparently how the computer algorithm grades the essay on those factors. And I sort of translate it for the student. Well, when they say purpose and focus, what does it mean? You want to have a clear thesis that addresses the prompt. That's what that means. Organization, structure, development, and support. That's going to happen if you have 3 to 4 body paragraphs that provide examples of support. Mechanical convention, sentence variety, and style is you try to write well and you try not to have a lot of mistakes. Critical thinking is having an interesting perspective on the topic. I don't know how the computer tests for that, but that is beyond me. And then, like, if you're just like, we're looking at all that information and being like, oh my God, that's a lot. I have linked these to, this is the newest one. This one I think is from 2018. This is the most recent version of the Right Placer. And this is the old one from 2008, but they still have a really good topic in there and sample essays. So these are really, really good guides because they have sample essays that were scored a 1, 2, all the way up to an 8. So you can look at a 5 essay with the student and say, well, look at what this got, and let's talk about why it might have gotten that, and let's talk how we can get you to a 5 or higher. So both of these, even though this one is more than 10 years old, it has a good topic and it has good samples in it. So I think it'll work really well for you to use with your students. And that's it, okay? That is the overview of the test. I hope you feel, if you didn't know anything about the test, I hope you feel at least you understand the kinds of questions that they're going to ask. Please feel free to reach out to me at Jefferson. And if you have any questions or maybe even if you have some feedback, like something you'd like to see or something you'd like to suggest for the course or for the video, or if you have a success strategy that you want to share with me. I love good ideas. Thank you very much for your attention and have a wonderful day.